it's a good thing to be doing. It's premised, I believe, the idea of having a permanent organisation here, a self-help organisation from grassroots up and not the top down. It's premised on the experience of Mojo in Scotland. And I was just going to say something about Mojo, something about Paddy Hill. It's Paddy Hill's child, Paddy Hill's brainchild. And Paddy I met first more than 30 years ago in Gartree Prison. As an astonishing first encounter. It's being hit with a tidal wave of anger, enormous force of anger. We had a meeting for about 2 hours and Paddy didn't stop talking, didn't require me to say anything. He did actually rifle through my bag at the same time and liberate some money which he said he needed for his campaign. But I have never encountered such sustained anger over a very long time, largely directed at me over the years that Paddy was in prison, either because I was inadequate, which I was, or because I was the conduit to convey his anger to the Home Office, the Home Secretary of the day. Maybe matched only by the wave of anger I experienced in a similar way from Jerry Conlon. And for the same reason. Impossible for the rest of us to comprehend what it is like to be wrongly accused. Impossible for us to comprehend what it's like to be imprisoned. Just impossible. And so those who have that sustained energy to demand attention, to demand a resolution, it takes it out of them. But without it, nothing happens. Without it, they'd have been lost, and their co-defendants in each case who didn't have that same energetic fury actually were largely dependent, respectively, I would say, on what Paddy and Jerry separately accomplished in their cases in demanding a resolution. And Paddy, when he came out, kept that anger going. He was as angry, he is as angry today as he was then, but on behalf of other people. And he poured heart and soul and his compensation that he won from the Home Office for those years of wrongful imprisonment. He's poured it all into this little organisation, Mojo, which got off to a rickety start with nobody else but Paddy, and has grown and has become a mechanism to help other people, and screamingly needy of help. They're still tiny, but they're more organised, they're more grounded, have some recognition from the Scottish Government in terms of a tiny amount of funding. But that's what's needed, I perceive, here, something like that. I was asked, there was a journalist who, shame on him if he isn't here, wasn't planning to stay for the whole of the meeting, and who asked me beforehand to get an interview in, why did I think there was a need for the organisation here, and I said, I've no idea. You've got to stay for the meeting, I don't know, but hearing from my colleague here, there is a need, clearly. But that's because there will always be a need in whatever country, I suspect. Certainly any countries of the pattern of our countries, America and democracies in title, in name, in ethos, but yet which fall down again and again and again in repetitive ways that demonstrate there are state policies at work here. And in all of that, lawyers are complicit. In every case, there's an inadequacy on the part of lawyers. We've not noticed something, we've made a mistake, we've been too lazy, we've lacked energy. So the state's responsible, but we're responsible too. We fail people every day, and all of that anger that gets directed at us from the wrongly accused isn't all misplaced. Moism, when he came back from Guantanamo, wrote a book, and I observed to him, I was surprised it wasn't more angry. And he wrote a book in an impressive way that you can read and you can understand, and it isn't obscured by a fury that you can't comprehend. But I've observed also that Moism, since he's been out, and since, like Paddy and Jerry, they all hit the deck running. The moment they were out of prison, the moment they hit the deck running to help other people, to form groups or organisations that could attempt to do something. But I have observed Moism to become angrier in those years on behalf of other people, because one can see that there is no resolution, there is no victory, even when a case appears triumphantly to have been overcome, a conviction overcome, or a person in Guantanamo to have finally got back to his own country. There is never a happy ending. There is never, ultimately, a change in the policies and practices that led to it. That is what is so disturbing, and that is the lesson that we have to learn. In the past 10, 11 years, the thought that we were having to fight trench warfare, legal warfare, to overcome internment in England, people interned, 3.5 years battle in the courts to establish once again that that was unlawful. Had to have a battle through the courts for 4 years to establish that evidence obtained from torture was not admissible in court in England. Had to have a battle. There are battles going on day after day. It's one thing, and it's appalling, to wrongly accuse someone and they have a trial, and maybe one day you stumble on evidence that disproves what happened. But what if you never know the evidence? What if it's all in secret? What if instead of trying someone, you collaborate with the Americans and obtain their rendition instead of coming here to face trial? Instead, they're tortured under Gaddafi's intelligence agents. What if you ensure that someone gets taken to Guantanamo? What if here in this country you subject them to house arrest, control orders on secret evidence? If there's a breach, if you don't phone the police, Home Office when you're meant to because you have a curfew, then you're subject to a criminal offence. Then it's in an open court. But before that, it's in secret. These are areas that are growing. And it's harder for people ever subject to those areas of secret evidence to ever envisage that they could overcome a wrongful accusation. These are processes and procedures designed to address the victories. When there is a legal victory, the government has seen that it has to move the goalposts to ensure no victory can happen in relation to the new procedures in the future. So what is to be obtained from what would inevitably be a small organisation here, inevitably having to struggle for resources, inevitably being somewhat dependent on accidental, voluntary work from people here? What's to be gained? The answer is everything. Somewhere people can go to for help. Somewhere where people will understand how it is to be alone. Somewhere people will understand how it is to be wrongly accused and to have no help. Somewhere people will understand how useless lawyers are and how you need far more than any individual collection of lawyers will ever offer. Somewhere that will put your lawyers on their mettle. Somewhere that will energise them, criticise them, make demands on them. Somewhere that will help you understand how to take on what the state has done to you. Somewhere that will help your families, give them advice. But importantly too, somewhere that by dint of understanding individual predicament by individual predicament, and it could be a child wrongly accused of taking and driving away a car. It could be the enormity of being wrongly accused of murder. It could be somewhere very much in between. But in all of that, having an understanding of the pattern of how the state is acting. Because data, as Moisen was saying, data is power. If it's individual by individual who's picked off, it's David against Goliath, and Goliath always intends to win. But if there are 100 Davids, and you can see what's done to them, you can realise the true extent of the criminality of the state that's doing it. And again, as Moisen said, it will go on. As Paul said, who has been ever brought to book? Who has ever been brought to book? If they were, the state agents who do this, whether they be police or security forces or ministers, if they were brought to book, would it continue happening? I'm sure recently you saw a number of very elderly survivors of the British campaign against the Mau Mau in Kenya 50 years ago. Elderly men and women who had been raped, castrated, tortured by British soldiers. And at the same time that they were attempting to bring an action for redress and apology, they were discovered in a Foreign Office store 50-year-old records which showed that it went to the top. It wasn't the individual soldiers who were doing this who bore the ultimate responsibility. It went all the way up to the ministers. Had any of those or all of those been prosecuted for their complicity in torture, murder, and intolerable processes within less than a decade of the end of World War II, when we had entered into international treaty obligations never to do this to anybody ever again. If any or all of those have been prosecuted, that data have been recognised and known, do we really think that the pattern of the last year's 50 years of history will be the same? I hope it would not. That's why this proposed organisation has an absolute role in the present and future. It's for now, it's not for the past, it's for now, to take on board everything that has and hasn't been done and to make use of it. And thank you very much indeed